Hello YouTube, this is Marauders here, and well, I finally got it. The Xbox Elite controller Series 2. Yeah, been thinking about this for a while, and finally came up to be a point it was convenient for me to get it, so I got it. So let's take a look at it. Here it is from inside the case. Okay. So here it is, our Xbox Elite Controller Series 2. I guess the main reason why they went with the Series moniker is that they wanted to jive with the Series X in the future. Okay, so again, this is it, the Xbox Elite Controller. It looks nice. It's a pretty heavy little thing. It feels substantial when you hold it. And it's not actually made of plastic, so I mean the surface is not plastic, it's coated with this rubber like thing, so you can see there are like dimples and patterns on the grips and on the triggers just to like enhance the feeling of the thing. Yeah, it feels good when you hold in your hands. And of course, that's very important considering this is one expensive controller. So it better give you that premium feeling that it's worth what you paid for it. Okay? One little complaint about this surface is that while you need it to be rubber here, which is fine, I don't know why they chose to use the same rubber material here. Maybe it's because it's just one mold. Because on these pattern surfaces, it doesn't matter that much, but on these flat surfaces, you can already see that there are some of my fingerprints. When you sweat, it will just leave a mark on it. Well, aesthetic wise, some people will say that's a flaw, so yeah, it might be a concern for you, but we're not looking for looks here, we're looking for pure performance, and that's what the Elite controller is supposed to deliver. The first thing is that if we look at the joystick wells, once again, there's a ring around the joystick well so that it's more tougher. After all, there's a metal ring on it. Okay? And let's look at the main attraction, which is at the back of the controller. Now, at the back of the controller, you have these four things here. These are the extra buttons which you can map to any other button on the controller surface. And as I've been in my reviews of all these pro controllers, I've always said these are godsend to you if you're playing FPS shooters and you want that little extra edge, because when you have extra buttons like this, you don't need to, like when you need to jump, you don't need to take your finger off and jump, and you don't need to take a finger off the aiming stick to jump. Okay, that's the main reason why you have these extra buttons. Some people complain that with these extra buttons here, you cannot rest the controller on your lap, because when you put it on your lap, obviously it'll hit the buttons. That's not really a complaint, okay? Just don't put it on your lap, put it on the couch or something when you need to put it down. Okay? The other thing that you see at the back of the controller is that there's this little switch here. So this is the trigger lock switch. Now, what is a trigger lock? Yeah, normally the trigger goes in this deep, okay? So you have a lot of distance to cover, and depending on the game you're playing, this might not be ideal, because when you're tapping it, you want to shoot as fast as you can, you might not be able to tap it. You might not be able to tap it faster because your finger might just only come up when you feel resistance. So what this trigger lock switch does is that if you engage it, the travel distance of the trigger decreases. So that's the medium setting. Now I'm going to go for lowest. And you can see the trigger is pretty much a button. So yeah, that's great. That's very good if you are trying to like have the hair trigger feeling when you're playing FPS. You want the hair trigger feeling. But when you're playing something like Forza or driving game or hell, Star Wars Squadrons, when you're flying or something, you bring it up so you have the full travel distance of the trigger, and yep. Now the cool thing about this is that in the older version of the controller, what you had to do is, after you set the travel distance of the trigger, you also had to go into the Xbox app to configure the range of the trigger, because obviously, because the trigger doesn't go in as much anymore, it doesn't have the full 0 to 100% range. So in the previous Elite controller, you had to go into the Xbox accessories app and configure that you have engaged the trigger locks, so that if not, your game will not be able to detect the full range of throttle of these trigger values. But now they fixed it so that once you engage the trigger lock, it will automatically the controller will report the range based on the new shorter distance, which is great. Okay, because it means that you can change the trigger depth, the trigger lock on the fly, which is great. Something I really like. Okay, now let's come back and look at the front. So a lot of people will immediately comment on this little thing. Why is this not a D-pad? Well, this is basically Microsoft's solution of trying to make a more unique, more usable D-pad for both arcade games as well as shooter games and whatnot. So this is just magnetic. I can just lift it up. Of course, included in the case, you have the normal D-pad. You have the normal D-pad here, which you can just throw in when you want to swap it out. So why did Microsoft come out with this thing is that when they made the Elite controller, they always say that it's a good compromise between having exact unique directions, so that when you're playing like an FPS, you want to select individual options very quickly. And of course, but when you're playing an arcade game like a fighter or something, you want to be able to roll the directions. So this disc allows you to roll it easily. So the fact that there are edges and everything on this disc, it means that it's a compromise between a totally smooth surface and an individual unique, distinct directional controller like this. This can also be further seen in the new Xbox Series X controllers, which is basically a combination of this disc with some slight, even more raised directional bumps. And of course, just like with the Elite version 1 controller, these let me just get this out. These joysticks are also removable. So if you don't like the normal sticks, so here this one has some ridges on it, the concave ones, you can go for a stick without any concave. So this is smooth, so the edges are smooth. So there are two of these in the case. You can just replace them. If you don't like the ridges on the sides, personally, I like the ridges. I mean, they give a good feeling. And of course, if you want to have a convex dome, so a dome-like stick, you can do that also. They only give you one this time. And some will say that if you have a longer stick, it will give you it's better to have more fine-tuned control. So some might want to have this long stick. I think they use it on the aiming trigger. I wouldn't be very used to this. I don't know why some people prefer this. Okay, that's, if you like that, that's your choice. Cool. And the other thing that the sticks can do is, if we see that there's a little cross section here, there's a little cross mark here within the stick, and that's basically to adjust the joystick tension. So there's a little key that's inside the case, and you can just turn the screw thing here to basically make the joystick tighter or looser. So you can actually, so if you want it to be very stiff, so that you need to use more effort to turn, to aim, and to move it. That's supposed to give you like better accuracy when you're trying to control and shoot. So if you want that, yeah, you can just screw it down so that it's tight and it's tight. Oops. So that it's tight, and you can have you can have more effort to aim better. Personally, I don't really know what's the difference. It feels fine either way to me. Okay. Now let's just segue over to this case here for a second, because this is a cool case, I must say. So first of all, you have the case. You can store all your things here. You can just keep them very neatly. If you want to remove the back pedals, you can just remove them, and then you can store them here. So the back pedals are also removable with like a magnet. They're also held in place by magnets, and you can easily remove them. Which is why some people call this the exploding joypad. Because when you drop it on the ground, since all these things are held in by magnets, they'll just pop, everything will pop off, and well, they'll just explode. And again, some people find that is a flaw, but I just have to ask them, why would you put yourself in a case? Why would you want to drop this thing? You don't want to drop this thing, okay? I seriously, why would you want to drop this thing? That's not something that this thing is supposed to stand up to. I mean, again, since this is a performance controller, I'm worried that we're gonna have a very fast, the controllers are gonna start to drift or whatever. But for some people to think that, look, if you drop this controller, it'll fall to pieces, and that's a bad thing. I wouldn't want this to drop on the ground. Seriously, why would you even consider that? Okay. So in this case, we have everything here, and I would like to direct you to this little thing. And if you look at the back of the controller, there were these 3 contacts here. So these are battery charging contacts. So this Elite Series 2 controller uses an internal rechargeable battery instead of AA. And you charge it using this thing. So this is the charger. You plug in a USB-C controller and USB-C wire, and then of course it's magnetic. Again, it's magnetic also. You just drop it down and it will charge the controller. Oh yeah, the controller itself is also using USB-C now, which is great, I guess. but this is great. I mean, there's a nice big, this is a weighted charging stand. But of course, you might think like, okay, so whenever I want to charge the controller, I have to take this out of the case and then plug it in and just charge it like that. Okay, that would be great, but what's amazing about this case that I really like and I was surprised too is that notice we can put the charging hub here, and there's a little hole here. And when we open this up, hey, that's the USB-C. That's the USB-C port of the charging stand. So what they expect you to do is, you don't even need to take this out of this case, okay? You want to keep your precious Elite controller in this case. You finish playing for the night, so you close it up, and then you just need to take the wire and plug it in, and it'll charge while it's in the case. That's a really neat trick. I really like that design. That's great. Okay, it's a very ingenious way of doing it. But one thing about this case is they did mess up one small little thing. They screwed this up, which is that now if we look at the top of the case, there's this mesh area here, and this is to hold obviously this is to hold accessories and small little accessories and stuff. That's what people tell you. But of course, the one thing you really want to hold inside the case for a controller is the actual USB wire for the controller. Okay, yeah, the Xbox the Elite controller runs on wired and wireless, but of course most people trust wired, especially if you're in a competitive area. So they gave a pretty long wire, which is usual for when it's a controller for a console TV, because you want the wire to reach from the console to your couch. So this is probably a 3 meter wire? Let me see. One, two. Yeah, yep. Okay. Yeah, it's about 3 meters. Okay. So let's say you're done for the day. You pack up the cable. You're ready to move on to your next gaming event, and you just put the cable. You just bunch up the cables. You put it into the mesh, and you close it up. And what's this? You can't close it up. That's because someone might have miscalculated something, because there are these two sticks here which totally bump into the wires when you try to close it up like this. So your option is either you could take out the sticks, which still ain't gonna work because they're still bumping it, and that's a very big wire. Or you can slide the wire down to the bottom area where there's this gap here, so they can close it up, which is what I do. Yeah, that's a very interesting oversight on Microsoft's part. I mean, everything else I felt on this case just felt perfect, except for the fact that this mesh area for holding the wires just doesn't work. I mean, especially if you want to like put it in the indicator area where they say, yeah, put stuff here, it just doesn't work. You have to bring it down so that the bulk of the cable is at the bottom. So, and in the demonstration of at least they know they screwed up, when the controller comes in the box, the cable, everything else is inside the case except for this cable. This cable is separately packed because they know you cannot pack the cable into this carrying case without really damaging out the controller. So they decided to just, okay, we'll just separately pack this wire. And now let's move on to configuring the Elite controller with Windows, so you can see how to some of the settings and stuff in Windows. So here we are in Windows 10. Let's bring up the accessories app. So here we have the controller and we have the accessories app showing the controller. And first of all, let's talk about this extra button here. So this is the profiles button. So if I press it, you can see that. So there are basically 3 profiles which you can cycle through. 1, 2, 3. And this last one being, there's no profile active and the stick just behaves as default. Now let's just go into this default profile and we're going to say configure, and here it will say like here's our profiles, and I've selected this standard jump where I put one of the jump button to the back bumper, which you can see here. Here's our configuration screen. They can see how you can configure each. So you can basically say, I want maybe the Y button to act a different way. you can basically do anything. It's a very free customization system. There are not much limits to what it does. You can even say like you can assign a button as a shift button so that when you pull that button, pressing any other button will utilize their alternate functions. So that's useful. That's nice and useful. The one bad thing about it is that if you're in Windows, when you're in Windows, you cannot assign a button to do the game bar screen capture options, which is kind of a waste, but I guess it's because in Windows the game controller isn't a primary control method, so therefore they can't actually override it in order to get the game bar to work, I guess. But other than that, yeah, this is a pretty featureful. You can really just do whatever you want, which is great. Then of course we can just come here to the stick configuration. So this is basically just to oops. Yeah, I'm adjusting the left stick. Okay, I shouldn't. So this is basically just to adjust the sensitivity curves of the thumbstick which you want. So you have some options here, like whether it's like in primary mode or shift mode. You can like change the sensitivity curve. Okay, I don't know. I know some people would like to have this kind of adjustments, but personally I tried doing it last time. It didn't work very well for me. I just couldn't get used to it. Then of course you can change the way it calculates the angles, but I tried doing some settings and then going into the gamepad checker that I made the website, but it doesn't change the pattern that's drawn on the page. So yeah, I don't know exactly why that is. I'm not really sure how this one works. Okay, so moving on. So you can adjust the left stick, you can adjust the right stick, it's the same thing. Then let's talk about the trigger. So here are the trigger dead zone settings. And I just want to point out what I mentioned just now. So now, if we look at it, the trigger has okay, where's the focus? Okay. Come on, give me the focus. Okay. So right now, this controller has a trigger lock. Has no trigger lock, so it's at the maximum length, maximum travel. Okay, so it's at the maximum travel. So when I push it down, you can see that it will just go linearly from the start to the end. Okay, now if I engage the trigger lock to the medium, so you can see that if I press it a little, even though I'm pressing it a little, it just goes through the full motion of 0 to 100. So you want this in your games, because because you engage the trigger lock and because the trigger doesn't go down fully anymore and it doesn't show at 100, then the games might not work properly. So it's great that they have set this so that they can let the controller will override the 0 to 100 even though when you engage the hair trigger. So now I have hair triggers, and you can see it just engages into 100 immediately. So this is great. This is why the hair trigger switch in the Elite Series 2 controller works much better than the old one. Okay, then we have a little something interesting. So we all know that the controller has a vibration motors inside in the grips here. So that's a normal thing to have. But if we look what we have now in this controller is that we actually have trigger vibrations, which if you've been keeping track, so I can vibrate here, which if you've been keeping track, these trigger motors are basically what the next generation consoles like the Series X and the PS5, this is what actually one of their selling points, which is they're saying, look, we have variable resistance on the trigger, so you can feel more realistic when you're playing the game. Okay, fine. Now, in addition to the fact that these triggers already have vibration motors, even though this is supposedly just an Xbox One controller, because remember, any Xbox One controller can be used in a Series X with a Series X console. The other thing here is that a Series X Xbox controller has this button here by default, but of course for a normal Series X controller, this is like the the share button where you do the screen captures, whereas in this Elite controller is actually the profile button. And of course, the Series X controllers also have something that looks like a disc. It's but and yeah, so basically this Elite controller Series 2 is basically an Xbox Series X controller. Yeah, that's basically it. They decided to just come out with this and make it work with both the Xbox One and the Xbox Series X. So you don't have to buy yet another special Elite controller for the Series X. Which of course, okay, good move by Microsoft. Okay, so I already mentioned just now that the Xbox, the Elite Controller 2 uses a USB Type-C connection for its wired connection. But of course, because it's a normal Xbox controller, you can connect it via wireless to your console. And if you are using on the PC, this is also a Bluetooth controller. So okay, it's not even just PC now. You can connect this controller as well as any Bluetooth capable Xbox controller to your Windows PC, to your iOS phone, to your Android devices. Yeah, it's really great. But the thing about wireless is that I've been trying out Xbox controllers on Bluetooth for quite a while now. So I connected to my laptop's Bluetooth, and well, when it works, there's no complaints about it. It works, it feels fine, there doesn't seem to be any noticeable delay. But that's when it works. When it doesn't work, you get all the lags, the phantom button presses and everything. God, it's really fickle. Personally, I would say if you really have to use the Bluetooth, only use it when you really need to. Don't use the Bluetooth. Okay? The other thing here is that since this is a newer Xbox controller, this has the audio jack as well. Now, if you're using Bluetooth, supposedly you should be able to connect two Xbox controllers via Bluetooth to your PC, and then you have audio playing out of this. But I've been trying to get this to work, but it doesn't work for me. What does work and what I actually recommend if you really want to use Xbox controllers with your Windows PC is this thing. So this is an Xbox wireless adapter. Basically, what this does is this puts the same type of wireless radio that is in the Xbox console into this device. So you're not doing a Bluetooth connection to this thing. You're actually doing the native to Xbox wireless protocol using this adapter. And the great thing is when you use this, first of all, you can connect 8 controllers wirelessly to your PC, and also the audio port will work much more flawlessly when you use this. So it's a much better option if you want to use your Xbox controllers wirelessly on your PC. Yeah, I definitely much prefer this than Bluetooth. Okay, so all in all, is this Xbox Elite Series 2 controller worth it? That's again, as I always mention about all these competitive pro controllers. Just owning one of these doesn't make you a better player. There is always an advantage, a slight mechanical advantage to having these things, but it doesn't give you anything more than that. That's it. It's a slight mechanical advantage. Okay, it's not gonna make you better overnight just buying one of these. Um, when I talk about the Elite controller is, it's a very good premium controller done right. It's customizable. The make just feels great about it. But again, if you're just playing games, you really don't need one of these. You can just go with a normal controller. If you're at a point where you're playing games and you say, "Yep, I need something that will give me the slight edge. I feel that I want to take this thing very seriously." Yup, this is the Elite controller. You can't get it. You can't get better than this. Okay, this is the Elite of controllers. Yes, that's I don't know what else I can say about this. Okay, I won't outright recommend anyone get an Elite controller. You should know whether you're up to the point that, you know, I need this to improve my gaming sessions. But yeah, I really don't recommend this. It's not something like must buy for everyone. Okay, it doesn't radically change your gaming experience. But if you're in the market, you know that you're looking for all the other types of controllers like the Razers, the Scarfs, and whatever. Of course, we're talking about PC gaming here instead of pure Xbox. So this is definitely something that you can think about. But it's not what everyone should be going out to get. Okay, this is Marauders here. I will see you all in the next video.